The next one's from D. Layton, and the subject is suplexes and fake heels. To Mr. Gilberti, I've been listening to Keep 100 over the last couple of years, and one thing I've noticed during the wrestler shout-outs during the breaks is that it seems every heel doesn't like you, and I can never understand why. You would figure that every heel would support each other in one way, shape, or form and go against the faces. I remember back in the 80s when the heel managers in WWF would vie for the right to manage Macho Man Randy Savage, and they were all in the ring and not tearing each other down. Just an example. So when MJF says, fuck disco during a break, I ask myself why. Even though I know times have changed, even today you can see Sammy Guevara and MJF hanging out on TV at ringside as heels. Why the hate against you? Just seems you know how to be a great heel more so than the rest. Much respect to you. Also, I always liked the suplexes, not Suplex City bland Germans either. I always liked how Taz would do them back in the day, even with his dealings with Dean Malenko back in 1994. He always had the best bridges if he wasn't throwing them, and yes, I watched the interview with Dean Malenko, saying Taz wasn't a great worker, just promoted heavily by Paul Heyman. I just missed that part of wrestling where suplexes were used as a highlight, and when someone would more than one variation of suplex. I just want to know what are your guys' opinions on suplexes were? You guys are awesome, Daryl. The simplicity of suplexes have always worked for me, but now like wrestlers are like kind of like artists, so they've created all these weird different suplexes and stuff and everything, and to the point that like if you just do the basic ones, which are still you pick up a guy and slam him on his back, supposedly it doesn't hurt unless you do some variation of that where the guy ends up just getting slammed on his back. So I'm a fan of the old, and plus watching some old school wrestling matches, like like Austin and Brett and stuff. And people used to pop on basic suplexes, like a second rope suplex was like a big move, and then now it's like you gotta like kill the guy with the suplex. Remember, and they still kick out.
Barry Windham's finisher was a superplex off the second rope, and he would hit it and then do the float over
Tully,
cover.
Wasn't it? Or was that Windham?
Tully did the slingshot.
Slingshot.
Yeah.
Bro, if you look really early in my career, that's all I really did was suplexes because I thought they looked cool. And I used to watch a lot of Japanese wrestling back then and women's Japanese wrestling where they did a lot of suplexes. Mm-hmm. So I used to do a lot, especially with Eddie early in my career because I would get these tapes from Japan. And if you remember, Norman Smiley actually wrestled in that old shoot promotion when it first opened with Akira Maeda and all them. So he was into shoot wrestling. Obviously, Eddie was with his amateur background. So we would just sit around and watch tapes. There was early in my career, I did a lot of suplexes.
What is this guy in this email saying? So when MJF says fuck disco, did MJF say fuck disco during a commercial break one time?
A drop.
At a show?
In his drop, he closed it with fuck disco.
Oh, he did a drop for us? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear it. Okay. Oh, he said fuck disco? That's fine. I will say this, and to the guy's point about heels, back in the day, the heels were always unified. Let's fast forward to 2020, and I always used to ask this question back in Impact when we were in doing the Sports Entertainment Extreme with Vince, and me and we'd be in committees with Jeff and stuff. I would always ask the question, I think it's a reasonable question, bro, if the heels are unlikable and they're assholes, why would they like each other? Like a heel shouldn't be liked by anybody, not even another heel. Like they would all hate the baby faces, but they shouldn't all just randomly just all like each other. You know what I'm saying? It's like so that was my take on that. What do you think with heels?
I just always liked when the heels all stuck together and they all hated the baby faces.
Right, but if they have two heels tag teaming that like aren't like a unified, aren't an actual team. Right. I think they should have problems with each other during the match.
Yeah,
because it makes sense, kind of, that they're not getting along because they're both A1 personalities. They both want to be in charge. They're both assholes, So
well done. That's cool, but not every time they wrestle. Right. At the end of the day, it's so much easier. Just we're both dirty motherfuckers. Yeah, maybe we aren't partners, but we don't like those guys.
Well, plus two, if it's a bigger issue than just wrestling, because remember, Slaughter and Sheik started off; they were both heels.
Yep.
Right.
But the Iron Sheik was like the irony of Death and Slaughter. Here's the military guys, like, wait, I'm not gonna like you. There's no way the Sheik and Slaughter should have liked each other, right?
Yeah. Right.
So that makes sense. So
you know what that made me think of that stood out when I was a kid was that all the heels, there was the Heenan family, there was Jimmy Hart's crew with the Hart Foundation and Honky Tonk, there was Slick's guys like Butch Reed and One Man Gang, whatever. And then Bad News Brown came in. And Bad News Brown was such a dirty heel that the other heels didn't trust him. That was how they made it. No one's going to team with Bad News Brown. Holy shit.
If you've well-defined characters, you can do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But so
yeah, like they do with Randy Orton, that he can't be trusted by anybody.
Right. Yeah, that's good.